Journalist Peter Fitzsimons is with me at the moment. Peter's written a book called Batavia, which is a true story, the amazingly true story, of a ship by the same name, the Batavia, that sailed from Holland to go to the Spice Islands, as they were, and the citadel of Batavia, and hit a reef off the coast of WA in the year 1629. Between the ship's skipper and the psychopath Geronimus on board the ship, while the captain was on shore in Africa, they were planning mutiny. Okay, now, so that both these men don't have much to lose at this point, and everything to gain by.
And down below, they've got 12 money chests, and and what they start to do is whispers on the waves at midnight. Get the mutiny going. Are you with us, Richard? You're with us. Here's the cutlass. I'll give you the order when the time comes. And we've got him, and they build up 18 guys who are with them. So what then happens is Geronimus, they're getting closer. Geronimus and Jacobs, they're getting closer to Batavia. They're getting closer to their fate. They've got to do something. And here's the point of it. On the night of June 4, 1629, they think they're still 600 miles out to sea, so they don't think they're close to the Australian shore. And this mutiny is seething along, but hasn't yet broken out into the open. And at that night, at 3 o'clock in the morning, suddenly they hit the reef of the Abrolhos Islands. It's obvious from the moment that it hits that the ship is stricken, and they cut down the mast, which is to try to lighten the load. When the sun comes up, they can see nearby two tiny islands. And what then happens is Pelsart takes control, more or less, with Jacobs, and they ferry people back and forth to the shore. And they establish on one of these islands. They get the repository they get the wine, the food that they can salvage. They get one of the money chests. They get a lot of the textiles, and whatever they can salvage. And to speed it up a little bit, what happens then is you've got chaos on the shore. Not enough water, people crying out for water, for food. What's going to happen? And Pelsart takes 47. Pelsart takes the key decision. I'll put 47 people in this longboat and I'll go for help. I'll go to the Australian shore to see if I can get water, if there's no water there, and he takes with him Jacobs. So Pelsart and Jacobs are suddenly out of the picture. The leading commercial figure and the leading maritime figure, they go with 47 people, leaving Geronimus, the psychopath, in charge.
How does he go to begin with in organising the settlers?
Well,
without much food or water?
He asserts control. He says, and they hail him, we need a leader. I am that leader. There has been, the Dutch were very big. They were the ones who invented committee meetings. They were very big on having councils to decide. And there was a council of the predicant and various of the senior officials. He takes over that council. They invite him to become a part of that council. And for the first week or two, he establishes control. Dig the latrines. We'll have all the stores in my. We've got to have control of these stores. They'll all be in my tent. I want all the weapons in my tent. I'm going to need some people to guard them. I'll take you 18 men. So he puts his men, the guys that were the mutineers, gravitate to him. He installs them as almost the Praetorian Guard. So suddenly he's got the political power because he's got the force of the company behind him. He's got the muscle, who've got the weaponry. And what happens then is, within a week or two, he realises and he says to the mutineers, look, we've got 240, 250 odd people here. We've got limited food, limited wine. We'll be eaten out of house and home. We'll die. We're going to have to kill them. And they can't just unleash the forces against the other 240. What he does very cleverly, he divides and conquers. So he says to one man, you take 20 people over to this nearby island, which they can see, Seal Island, which is a low, flat strip of very sandy island, and you live there, and we'll bring you food when we need it. Now he says to the other man, you take 14 down to what became known as Traitors Island. And the key one is, he says to a man called Webby Hayes, he's a quiet leader, and in this crisis he has come to the fore, and the other soldiers are gravitating to him. So Geronimus recognises in this guy a threat. Right, what are we going to do? So he sends out his vicious henchman, David Zavunk, to an island 5 miles away and says, come back and tell me if there's water on it. Zavunk comes back and says, I've looked at it, there's no water. You beauty. First time in the history of Australia anybody said, you bloody beauty. So Geronimus sends for Webby Hayes and says to him, right, take your 20 best men, go over to the high island, there's lots of water there. We'll drop you off on the barge, we'll leave you with barrels, and once you fill them, send up 3 plumes of smoke. So off he goes, and Geronimus thinks that's the end of him, there's no water, they'll just die a miserable death. And what happens is, Webby Hayes, they live off puddles, they can't find any water, they go inland and they find what they call, in the journals, bouncing cats, you and I know as wallabies. Suddenly they've got a food supply, okay? But they've got some puddles of water that they survive. And Webby Hayes gets the men and they systematically search the island, and they're walking across this rock plateau, the most unlikely place to find water. And I've been there, you look at it, it just looks arid. They're walking across and they hear something. It sounds hollow. And it's like, you know, when you see Aboriginal carvings, sometimes there are rocks upon it. It's like that. There are no Aboriginal carvings. But when you shift this rock aside, suddenly you look and there is this natural well about 6 feet deep. And you look down it, you can see your face in it. So now you've got the situation. Webby Hayes on this island has got 20 men, he's got food, he's got water. Meantime, carnage is taking place back in Batavia's graveyard.
Now tell me about that, because Geronimus now has all of his threats out of the way.
That's right.
Then he reveals himself. And
he has a plan, an absolute plan to reduce the population of the island. So he sends his thugs out to Seal Island, kill them all. So they kill them all. Some of them get away in the middle of the night. He sends them out to Traders Island, kill them all. None of them got away. In fact, they tried to get away and they were massacred midstream. So what happens is this massacre is taking place in Batavia's graveyard. There are refugees, however. They get away. They get away and they get on bits of wood and they get to Webby Hayes' island. So Webby Hayes, over the next few weeks, builds up his numbers to 50 good men and true, 30 of whom have come from Batavia's graveyard, who say to Webby Hayes, Geronimus, massacre, murder, they're killing us. And they also realise, Webby Hayes realises, that if they've come for them in the other islands, they'll come for us. Now, the rescue yacht, both sides are thinking, if the rescue yacht comes back, that's going to be operative. That's going to be the thing that counts, because Geronimus wants to get off the island, and the only way they can do it is to slit the throats of anybody in the rescue yacht that comes. The problem is the rescue yacht will come from the northeast, meaning it'll come by Webby Hayes Island. So here's the key. Webby Hayes has realised this. Geronimus has understood it. We're going to have to kill the men on Webby Hayes' island. So he sends in his guys with the muskets and the swords, thinking it'll just be a turkey shoot, or the ancient equivalent of a turkey shoot. They've killed them on Seals Island. They've killed them on the Traders Island. So they send them in.
So Webby Hayes and his men on that island, they have no muskets. No. They have no weaponry at all. No. Well, not modern weaponry. What weapons are they able to make for themselves while they're on that island?
They have got artisans and they've got carpenters, people who are good with their hands. They've got some driftwood and they've got basically a few bits and pieces they took with them. So for the barrels, for example, the water, they use the iron off that. And what they're able to do, they're able to get bits of iron, put them in the end of long bits of driftwood, and they make themselves pikes. They can carve these things on sharp stones. They can make like daggers.
What happens when they try to assault the island of the good guys?
The baddies are approaching the goodies, and they're within 50 yards of getting to these tiny, it's like a 2-metre cliff that you've got to scale, and you have to go through the shallows, and it's difficult. They've got their muskets out, they're getting there, they're under the orders of Geronimus, who'll never dirty his own hands, and they're getting close, when suddenly rocks whizzing past their ears, hitting them. Drop the musket. That's wet, that's gone. Splashing, the water comes up over the muskets. They try to fire the muskets.
Gunpowder is wet, right?
And they look up, and there are Webby Hayes' men charging at them out of the cliffs through the shallows, and they turn tail and they run. So they're beaten off in that first attack, a victory for the goodies. And here we're getting to the point. This happens. Geronimus is infuriated, sends them in again for the second time. Again, they're beaten back. Sends them in the third time. Again, they're beaten back. And at this point, this is a bit convoluted, but Geronimus gets taken prisoner at a certain point. But the climax comes on September 17, 1629. When there's an all-out attack from the baddies, led by a guy called Wootaloo's, who's also got a military mind. And this time the baddies are winning, okay? And they're going methodically. They're not rushing in. They know by this time stones will come at them, and they fire alternately on their muskets, and they kill one of Webby Hayes' men up on the cliff tops. He falls. They kill another. This battle goes on for 3 hours. And here is the part that most people can't believe. It is in the documents. This is what happened. At the height of this battle, just when the forces of Geronimus and Wootaloo's are about to win the day, at that instant, the sail of the rescue yacht appears. And at that point, both the baddies and the goodies realise who gets to the rescue yacht first wins, and it is effectively, no joke, you'd probably, unless the Aborigines were prone to do it, it's the first serious boat race in Australian history, because there's this wild, Webby Hayes takes off, he's secreted his own boat on the other side of the island, so he races with three...
So they just drop everything, do they?
Drop everything. It's now
right.
about the rescue yacht. Right. Who can get to the rescue yacht? So meantime, Pelsart, he's desperate to get back, and he's thrilled to see a plume of smoke, meaning there's life, and he pulls in to this little cove on one of the high islands, and they go ashore, and then they look, and he can see a boat racing towards him. What's going on? And everybody, all these men, what's happening? And he recognises this guy, Webby Hayes, who was, a junior burger from the lowest chain, who's there, but he seems to be in command. And he says to Pelsart, he says, quick, they'll be coming, get back to the yacht, quick. And so Pelsart takes a chance. He sounds right, and so they get back onto the yacht just in time to see Wooterloos racing towards them in his boat, and he can see that they're armed. And so Pelsart says to his men on the yacht, "Everybody on my signal, go." But let's see what they've got to say. And so when Wooterloos and his thugs pull up, his murderers pull up, Pelsart says, "Why have you come with weapons?" And Wooterloo says, "We want to come aboard. We want to talk to you." And at that point, Pelsart gives the order, and suddenly, just like in any Hollywood movie, but this happened, the men in the lower boat look up, and there is these rifles, these muskets pointed down at them. So what happens is Pelsart's men take control. They go to the island, they round up the baddies, they bring Geronimus, and they begin a trial. And this trial goes for weeks.
Where did they hold this trial? On the ship?
On the ship.
On the rescue ship?
Some of it on the ship and some of it on the shore. And so at the end of it, they decide 9 of them shall die. So over on Seal Island, they construct this set of gallows. They take Geronimus and the 8 others over there, the worst of the murderers. And it's not simply to be hung. There was a ranking. Some of them were, first of all, he can be hung. Others, you have your left hand cut off and then you'll be hung. Geronimus was to have both of them cut off and then hung. And when they hauled Geronimus up to the top of the ladder against the gallows, and both of his bloody hands stumps, so they've just cut them off, and they put the noose around his neck, and they're about to kick the ladder out, and his last words, all documented, were revenge.
Peter, how many innocent men, women and children
125. 125 were killed.
He'd been responsible for the murder of 125 people on these little puddles of island off the coast of WA.